17, they fell in love. High school sweet.
Hello and welcome back to Fed Up, the #1 podcast where you can get up on all things Federal League. I'm your host, Josh Stoll, and with us yet again is our executive producer, Chris Miner.
How you doing, Josh?
I'm great. Yeah, I'm great. Got all the negative juju out last week. Repping my East Ridge Raptors hat this week because my daughter was on a 10U team that was able to take home a state championship over the weekend. I got to go from that high of highs to the low of getting our butt kicked by the South Metro Saints. But it's all smiles today because we have a very soulful edition of Fed Up. We have a very special guest lined up, and I am super excited to introduce the league to this guy. His name's Jason Peterson DeLaire, and he has just an incredible story. He's done some really great things in the game of baseball, but more so outside of it, but just a lot of cool stories. Really looking forward to sitting down and having him on. We are going to go back to some more traditional segments on this episode. We are going to have a trending edition of our Max Bat Scoreboard Roundup. We're going to go ahead and look at some games that are on tap, and we are going to have another rendition of our Fed Up Power Rankings. But all of that precedes a very, very special guest that I am looking forward to having.
Yeah, the whole thing about this league I constantly keep being reminded of is all the different stories that you wouldn't even think of that are abound around here. So I'm excited to catch up with him. I've had a chance to meet him a couple times, but never really get into the weeds. But so I'm really looking forward to that conversation.
Well, it's time now for our Max Bat Scoreboard Roundup. So many games to cover here. So we're going to take it from a more of a stockbroker's approach. Lars does those biggest gains and falls, in the Federal League and really highlights some teams that are trending in either direction. There's a number of those right now that we'd love to highlight during this feature. But before we do, still trying to get up to Bruton to show you guys the manufacturing plant. Really hope that happens because it is totally worth it. But for now, make sure you get your orders in for the playoffs. Use promo code FEDUP to save 20%. Those Federal League very specific promotions still available to the entire league to put together a group order. Mr. Miner, you broke a bat Sunday night. Can expect your order to go in soon, I'm sure.
Yeah. ASAP. And have you seen one? I haven't seen one break like that in a long time, by the way.
At least if you're going to break a bat, attempt to kill the pitcher with it so you can get an infield hit, just like the way you did.
That was actually the torpedo that I was trying out, and I was just getting comfortable with it until, was it Tyler? Shattered it. So, at least I don't have to worry about wondering if I like it or not, and I can just move on.
Yeah, well, Torpedo Bat's available at maxbat.com as well, so you make sure to log in and check those out. Teams trending that we want to talk about and feature. We're going to talk about some of the hot teams in the league right now. We've got the Burnsville Bulldogs. We've talked about them in a couple of weeks now at length. They have evened up their record at 8-8. They have fought their way all the way up to a 6 seed in the AA. This team has a favorable schedule down the stretch here, taking on the Metro Loons and the Chaska Voyagers. Somehow, some way, this team, who was once 3-7, could end up winning double-digit games, maybe even being a higher seed for their playoff matchup.
Right, it's crazy. It seems like maybe a week or two before we took the break, we were talking about the Loons kind of just mashing and beating everybody up, and it just takes a couple of weeks for the whole landscape to change. And good on Burnsville for just grinding and kind of poking through that first month there. It's a pretty awesome thing to see. So looking forward to seeing them at Alley Magnet in August.
Another team trending in a great direction, the St. Paul JTs. This team is a real enigma to me. They are one of 2 AA teams right now that have allowed 100 runs, but they're also one of 2 AA teams who have scored 100 runs. They have lost a game 28-5, and they've won a game 20-0. I mean, if that's not Jekyll and Hyde, I don't know what is. But Certainly a very intriguing team to follow. After that butt kicking against the Mammoth, they are 3-0-1 in their last 4, have crawled all the way up into the AA as well.
I think it's awesome. JT's has always been kind of that you can count on them finishing basically A, B, wherever, just depending on whatever summer it is. And, they're going to score in between, 2 to 6 runs a game, right? And all of a sudden it's just a deluge one way and then the other way. So at least it's getting a little spicier over there. And I've appreciated catching up with some of the guys. We've played them once and they didn't have a ton of turnout. So it'll be cool to catch up with them here in the upcoming week or two.
There's certainly some other teams that are on red hot fire, but most of those we will hit in our power rankings. So let's talk about the other side of the coin here. There's a couple of teams that are going in the complete opposite direction. You remember a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about teams like the Apple Valley A's and the Metro Loons as being a AAA team. Are they real or for not? Turns out maybe a little bit of pretender to both those squads. They're both even. The A's 8-8, the Loons 7-7, both sitting at 500. Looks like they're going to be a fixture in the AA. Going to be a tough out for anybody, but those are two teams that could really benefit from a change of pace, change of scenery, whatever change they need it now.
Yeah, and it's wild because it's two different types of teams. Your group does it with pitching, defense, base running, and timely hitting. They beat the shit out of everybody. It's kind of an interesting juxtaposition there. But once this is all kind of, it's interesting how this is going to unfold because we've talked about. I don't know what your forecast looks like, but most of the time everyone comes with their as close to an A squad they have for that summer when it comes to playoff time. So every one of these little things when you're short guys or whatever is a big deal when it comes to where you're at in August. So who knows, one of you guys might slip and just find yourselves in a division you might not have seen yourself in to start the season.
You're absolutely right in the contrasting styles of play for both of those teams. But come August, they get their guys there. Both those teams are certainly capable of getting hot and running through the gauntlet of that AA, as are a number of other teams that will be featured in that playoff bracket. A couple of other teams trending in a poor direction. One of them we're going to hit in our power rankings, but the St. Louis Park Snappers have dropped 3 in a row. Is this trend or mirage? We talked about how difficult the schedule is, but it doesn't get any easier. They've got Red West. After that, it's Tonka Bay, the Minnetonka Saints, the Laconia Islanders again. Is this team in danger of missing the AAA?
I think it's going to take a lot to do that. This seems to have happened really fast in the last week or so, and when you kind of already have your availability and all that stuff, basically a week or two out, right? Your roster is pretty much set for that day. You get 3 just 3 off the hop in the short time. It's kind of hard to rally from that when your story's already been kind of written with who you got or whatever. So I think they're going to rebound. They're a big time team with big time players, right? This is the first time they've really been tested, and they've kind of fallen into the same category as everybody else. No one's really running away with this thing. Everyone seems to catch a bad one here and there. So I'm confident that they'll turn around and be competitive. I don't think there's any issue with them slipping out of AAA personally.
One team I want to feature in our trending version of the MaxBat scoreboard roundup, the Minnetonka Mustangs. This team's they've had their ups and downs, but it's been more downs as of late. They are now under 500, have fallen back into maybe more of the realm of where we thought they might be in the A bracket. They are 1 seed in that A right now, certainly capable of climbing back up into the AA. But with the schedule like Tonka Bay, Waconia, Tonka Bay again, St. Michael Angels, maybe you get a Dan Pluff out there. Those are 4 or 5 games that are going to be really difficult for them to secure a win in, and probably that trend of that downward trend will probably continue.
Tonka Bay, Waconia. Yeah, that's a tough little draw to finish up the year. And yeah, like you said, to end it, you could run into Dan Pluff just to say have a good one, for the regular season. It's been an awesome story. I got a chance to run into their kind of pal around their dugout for a second at the All-Star game. And, we don't see the Mustangs much. I mean, in the Eastern Division, I've never played against them, so I only see them when they're playing other people's. I told them, I'm like, God, I hope you guys go on a run because I think it'd be fun to talk about. It's been a cool story. I think it's something to build on for them, but that North Division is a tough one. And so we'll see how that goes. But hey, they got it moving in the right direction going into next year for sure.
The Vesely Vulcans, I think they've lost 8 in a row now, and many of those via the 5 inning 10 run rule. Vesely at one point was all the way up into the AA. They have free fallen into the B. Schedule doesn't get a whole lot easier for them with Lonsdale, Newmarket, Elko. Vesely, though, I feel like is a team that, they made some noise last year in the B bracket. I feel like they're a team that could get up and put it together in time for the playoffs when they're facing maybe some lesser competition, but certainly a team that is in free fall right now. Scott Angus, their ace, posted a meme from Dumb and Dumber. Our pets' heads are falling off. Like it is all hands on deck, all alarms firing for the Vesely Vulcans right now.
Yeah, we got the chance to play them for the first time that I've played, and earlier this year, and Scotty beat us actually. It's just one of those, playing in the South or the West for that matter, it's just, you can't slip up at all. And I feel like learning that Scott Angus is one of the funnier dudes in the league. So, yeah, hope they can finish out strong here and maybe pull 1 or 2 out before the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm with you. Scott's a great teammate, so happy to see him having a lot of success down in Vesely. Seems like a great group, great fields. Hopefully they'll be able to make a little bit of a run in the postseason. Kind of an abbreviated version of our MaxBat scoreboard roundup, but so much is about what's ahead as we wind down the regular season. Just 71 games remain on the Federal League's calendar for the regular season. So let's go ahead and launch into our next segment, What's on Tap. But before we get into what's on tap for the Federal League, we have to know what's on tap at the Tap Society. Well, as we know, those 26 taps are always rotating at the Tap Society. A couple of the ones that we've featured in weeks past have moved on. So if you missed out, you have to hope they come back sometime. But today, I am bringing my glass to the tap wall, and I'm filling up with the Endless Chill IPA. It's an American IPA from Falling Knife Brewing Company out of Minneapolis. I need a little more chill in my life, and to have Endless Chill would certainly be a welcome personality trait as we enter the postseason.
I was just trying to picture you just endlessly chilling, and it was very hard. But after just knowing the summer you've had, just being able to talk to you here, I think Endless Chill, the timing of this could not be more perfect for you. So I hope you enjoy that cold draft. We're in a weird spot, and I just, could rain. Could play the Mammoth, whatever. I'm feeling weird, just weird. We're gonna come with a kind of a hodgepodge squad. Let's F around and get a win. So let's have the number 14, the Ectogasm. Drecker Brewing Company in Fargo. Ectogasm is a juicy, hazy, soft IPA with Citra and Mosaic hops. Ectogasm, the first thing I think of is Ghostbusters, Ecto Cooler High C. Probably has nothing to do with that, but I like the name.
Yeah, it's quite the logo too. But yeah, it looks delicious. Out of Fargo. I've never heard of it. Spent some time up in Fargo. My dad lives up there, but never heard of Drecker. But we'll have to check that out for sure. Still plenty of opportunity yet over the last 71 games to book the Tap Wagon for one of your baseball games. Make sure you reach out to Mike Fritz to go ahead and book that. Don't forget about his offer to host your end of the year party on a Monday evening. You'll get the place to yourself, a very low, affordable rate. Talk about $500 to do a team outing. You get food, you get beer. It's an unbelievable deal to have a private setting and to have food and bev included in that is just unbelievable. Thank you, Mike, for making that deal available to us. The A's are definitely taking them up on that, so looking forward to that. I hope your teams do as well. Well, I've got to kick off what's on tap with a bit of a weather report. Unfortunately, of the next 10 days on the Federal League schedule, 6 of them have a 40% chance of rain or higher. That includes tonight. So your game, the East Metro Mammoth, South Metro Saints in danger there, as are a number of others. But looking at other games on the schedule ahead, I'm going to fast forward to Thursday night, Eden Prairie at Waconia. Waconia is absolutely lighting people on fire right now, hitting the snot out of the ball. We've mentioned Scott Marquardt's epic season has a chance to perhaps set Federal League all-time records, single season records for batting average, OBP, among others. So, but he's obviously had a lot of help in that lineup. Waconia has scored an unbelievable total of runs. They have thrown up 148 runs in just 14 games. Pitching's getting it done. Craig Meyer's been really great for them. A run differential of 5.5 runs a game. But they're playing an Eden Prairie team on Thursday that might be getting stronger at the right time of the year. This team just put a beat down on Rockford. And according to firsthand witnesses, they had some sticks in that lineup that might not have been there all year that are not going to lend themselves to a 3-10 team. This is a team, if they get some good attendance down the road, maybe they can upset Waconia one of these times and really shake up that AAA bracket. But, you know, they could potentially really take it to teams like the Diamonds and Capital City, find themselves maybe as a low A. But this game, I think, is one to keep an eye on just to see if Waconia can keep up that hot trend or if Eden Prairie might be hiding a little bit more under their sleeve.
Yeah, that Eden Prairie, I mean, it's such as life in the Fed. You think you have a wrap or grasp on the personnel around the league once you get to July, like who's playing for who and what they look like, and then boom, there's just randoms popping up. I kind of compare it to how Richfield had that young turnover, and they just seemingly had guys coming out of the weeds, and all of a sudden look at them now, right? Same kind of deal maybe going on there in Eden Prairie and some of these other places, like maybe the Mustangs, who knows. But as far as Waconia goes, that loss that they had, was it to Minnetonka, right? Was it 11 rip? Seemed to be a little wake-up call there.
Looking at games beyond Thursday, the one that we have to talk about Friday night, it's a rematch in the Southern Division, Lakeville at Hastings. This game was pretty contentious the first time around. I don't feel like these two teams have a particular amount of love between them. So it should be a really great game. Tons at stake here in terms of seeding. Hastings, of course, trying to catch the Minnetonka Saints for that 1 seed right now. Lakeville suffered a massive loss in their last game. Brian Ludwig appears he may be out for the rest of the year. I believe he's having some tests done on a leg injury, but could certainly be a big loss for them. Lakeville did pick up kind of a backup catcher that's been able to give him some spells. So, you know, hopefully there's not much of a fall off for them, but a great leader, great hitter. Too bad for Lakeville and for the league to see Ludwig have that injury. Definitely have an impact on the game on Friday.
Yeah, especially for a team that we've kind of touched on before, saying, hey, look, they just kind of do what they got to do to stay where they belong in AAA, and then they figure it out from there. And the timing of this probably couldn't be worse, you know, he's basically their on-field general, right? So it does suck. Hopefully it's a quick recovery, and you know Lakeville's going to be in it for more than 1 weekend, 2 weekends, you know, so maybe a little extra week in there, he'll be able to come back in some fashion at some time. But yeah, been looking forward to this Hastings-Lakeville rematch for a while.
Fast forward to later in the weekend, we've got 12 games lined up for Sunday, none bigger than Rockford at Minoka. This could have tremendous AAA seeding ramifications. Rockford, should they be able to pull the upset again on Minoka, I think they can squeak into the AAA. Maybe it's St. Louis Park or Newmarket that ends up getting pushed out. Could be the Tonka Bay Lakers by a run differential, you know, something like that. But I think if Rockford wins this game, they finish out at 13-5, they'd have a pretty good chance at making the AAA. But that's a tough task to get by the Grays.
Yeah, absolutely. Just looking at the Grays schedule here, they have St. Anthony, Red West, Metro. So you think that the guys over there are basically lining up who they plan to throw each of these 4 games. And, you know, with their stable, they're pretty deep. So it's going to be that's a tall task if Minoka has who they want to have. It looks like that matchup it's on the weekend, right? So hopefully both teams have their best, and we'll see how the chips fall.
That game Sunday night at Castle, definitely be one to keep an eye on. One last game I'm going to highlight before our next episode occurs next Tuesday night on the 22nd. Rosemount traveling to the Mammoth. Mammoth were victorious in round one. I feel like Rosemount, with all the rest they've had, they seem to have great attendance. They are really taking care of business when it comes to the opponents on the schedule. I feel like this could ultimately be the game that decides the East.
I agree. Obviously, they're the top two teams in the East right now, have been for a couple of years now. The thing with Rosemount coming down the stretch here is they have 3 games in, was it 18th, 20th, and the 22nd. One of the games is against us. One of them is against the Mammoth, obviously, and then they have the Senators, who beat us last Friday. So, you know, we're gonna see how they do beyond Cliff, right, on the mound. Who else they have? We know that they have guys, but it's kind of getting down to that point where everyone knows Cliff. He's established himself this season. Who else is going to step up when it comes down to playoff run for them?
33 of the 71 games remaining will take place between now and our next episode. So little under half of what's remaining will be completed by the time we bring you the next rendition of Fed Up. The next week, obviously the last week of the season, but some more exciting news about what's on tap. The playoff brackets are out, so the league's executive committee delivered on those as promised, maybe a little bit later than some would have liked, but they are out officially. The league will be utilizing 4 different sites to bring us this version of the postseason. Of course, we'll be going back to Alley Magnet. Great setup there with both fields that they have available, be able to play games simultaneously, overlapping, just have lots of great opportunity to see other teams play. Using Big Willow, we'll be using St. Bonnie once again. And this year, we introduced a new site. We'll be heading out to Hastings for a handful of games. Those games will be played in the A bracket, but should be a great setting for those games on August 9th.
Yeah, I mean, Alley, there's nothing better to me personally than Alley Magnet on the first weekend of the playoffs, even the second weekend, you know, both just to have both 2 fields there. You're usually going to have 2, 4, 6, 8, you know, 8 teams kind of there at a particular time, either warming up or playing. So just being able to connect with people and just watch other teams play that you might not see is always fun. But, you know, Big Willow, I've never played there. I've coached kids there before. I hear awesome things about that place. But I can vouch for Hastings. Hastings is an awesome place to play. They do it right. They take everything out of your hands. They'll take care of the PA. They do the concessions, all that stuff. So whoever is fortunate enough to land down there won't be disappointed.
Yeah, great. Those playoffs, once again, will open up August 1st, where we will have 6 games on that Friday night. 4 of them will be at Alley Magnet, 2 in the AAA, 2 in the AA. We'll also have 1 game in the A bracket out at Big Willow, 1 game in the B bracket at St. Bonaventure. So that will be a great way to kick off all 4 brackets with action on Friday night under the lights. It is time now for our latest edition of the Fed Up Power Rankings. It's been 2 weeks since we've officially ranked out one of these, so some changes are in order, and boy, did we ever make some. So looking forward to bringing this to you, but it is quite a bit different than it was 2 weeks ago, which just shows the strength and parity of the league.
Absolutely. You feel like you get to know a league here, just digging into it every week, and it turns out I know as much about this league as Stephen A. Smith knows about baseball.
Well, in at number 10, we've had him there in stone all year. Why change for the sake of change, right? You know who it is already now, right? It's the Newmarket Northerns. They are actually an 8th seed right now in the AAA via the run allowed tiebreaker. They would beat both St. Louis Park and Tonka Bay in that tiebreaker. But Newmarket is a team that we're still, it feels weird here in the middle of July, learning about, but they've got some big tests on their schedule ahead that we will, I think, learn exactly who this team will be in the AAA. I'm mostly looking at that game against Hastings to see just how they hold up against some of the league's finest. But Newmarket, deep roster, good pitching, completely different than a year ago, but it's still a team that was in the championship games 2 years in a row. Certainly can go a long way in this bracket, but in at number 10 on the Fed Up Power Rankings.
They kind of came in from left field to start the year, and they haven't looked back. We got some insiders kind of foretell some of this could be a possibility early on this year. And man, he wasn't wrong. I think even if they go on a run or if they lose a couple, I think you leave them at 10 just because it's the right thing to do this year. No, but that being said, I think they're going to finish strong and they're going to be primed for a little run. There's a lot of unknowns, I feel, with the most of the league. I'm sure the guys in the South have an idea what's going on down there now, but it'll be fun to have them come up and so the rest of the league can see what exactly is going on there, because you don't just rebuild a championship team like that. What the hell? We've been trying to build a AA team for 20 years, whatever it is, 15, whatever. So enjoy it, New Market. You earned it.
Yeah, I know as a team that expects to play in the AA in the playoffs, I am rooting for them to make the AAA. I know that. So good luck, Northerns. I hope you keep winning in big fashion. But on to number 9 in the Fed Up Power Rankings. How the mighty have fallen. The St. Louis Park Snappers, the last time we did this, were the top-ranked team, the only undefeated left. But they have now lost 3 games in a row. Talked at length about the difficult schedule. Gotta assume there's another loss or two in the near future for this group. We'll see just how resilient they are. Maybe they need to, maybe amend some of their strategies of, the pitching by committee and just ride a hot hand. This team still scores a decent amount of runs. They've got a great run differential. They've nearly outscored their opponents by twice. But we're seeing them play some other AAA competition for maybe the first time this year, and it is not going the way of the Snappers. They're not conducing.
If we were talking, they had maybe 3 or 4 games left on the schedule, I wouldn't be too concerned. But you're trying to squeeze in 5 plus perhaps any rainouts or delays from here on out or postponements. So all that being said, I think they're one of the teams that's equipped to handle that kind of thing with the depth they have. So I feel like they'll still be all right. I'd feel better if they only had 3 or 4 games left, but I feel okay about them. Yeah.
Moving on to number 8 is the Tonka Bay Lakers. Anytime you're led by a 1-2 punch like Brower and Wolf, perhaps a very hungry team after being snubbed for the AAA a year ago, anxious to prove they belong with the top of the top. They've had a great year. Obviously, anybody in our power rankings they have a fairly favorable schedule down the stretch here. One massive game with the Snappers, but could certainly see this team end up at 14-4, somewhere in that range, which, depending on how the rest of the juggernauts shake out here with a lot of inner fighting going on over the last 2 weeks of the season, they could be anywhere from out of the AAA to potentially a 7 seed, but certainly when the games and the brackets shrink down a little bit, this team's capable of beating anybody.
Oh, absolutely. The thing with them is they also have a bunch of games to fit in here in the next few weeks. And they got the Mustangs, Snappers, Norsemen, Mustangs. So you think, okay, maybe hopefully out of those you probably take 3. And there's that same Michael Angels game there. And I wouldn't say much about it, but I just took a peek and I saw Dan Pluff pitch for the first time since May, last week, I believe. So you never know. One of the trusty, historically great arms in the league might just pop in and just give you the business one of these days. So I'd like St. Louis Park, if they didn't have such a heavy workload coming up against tough opponents, I think they're equipped to at least hang and manage to keep themselves in that AAA mix.
Absolutely. Pluff laying in the weeds, ability to play spoiler against anybody. I don't think he's allowed an earned run yet, so certainly a very good one. Could exactly be that wild card, just like you're suggesting. In at number 7, the Lakeville Lobos. A little bit of a downgrade through no fault of their own. These guys are sitting at 13-3. They've won a ton of great games in a row. They were able to beat Tim Scott at King 2-1. Mostly on the strength of a fill-in schlub of a catcher that also hosts a podcast. I will say that Tim pitched well enough to win that game. He struck out 11. So maybe Lakeville still has some demons to kick when it comes to, hitting some of the premier pitching when it comes to this league. But they were missing a couple of usuals as well. That game that could certainly make a difference in a playoff run. But the injury to Ludwig, I hope he shows up. I know he's been running the team while Tori's kind of been, busy with some of his softball stuff. So hopefully he's able to attend the game, because if he's not there kind of being the general, like you mentioned, from the dugout, that team certainly could lose their North Star. But Lakeville, Matt Meyer threw in that game against us. He throws hard. It's to the point where you're pretty much going to see straight gas from him, but here it is, hit it. And it's not very easy to do.
No, you kind of mentioned how it's no fault of their own. We talked about it a month or two ago. They had a lot of their games on the front end, so they've been able to kind of rest up. You'd think a guy like Ludwig would be there. He's kind of, he's all about it. I can't see him missing unless he's got something else to do, obviously, right? But Lakeville's going to be ready for the playoffs, and I'm excited to see Meyer. I haven't seen him throw since he got hurt, so getting to see what guys throw against top-notch talent in this league is one of the more entertaining things, or impressive things to watch, really. And what makes this league so great.
Yeah, Steinberg started that game against us. He was unbelievable. So nice to see him back. And, they've got, of course, Donnie Erdahl, Austin Mitchell, ton of talented arms. But you can only throw one of those. You got to hit the ball too. So, but we'll see what Lakeville has in store for us for the playoffs. In at number 6 and up one slot, trading places with the Lobos, are the Rosemount Pipers. Coach Ken Fry absolutely playing chess with his schedule down the stretch here. They will ramp back up now after about a month of playing one game a week. You mentioned it's going to be a little bit more active over the course of the next week or so for the Pipers, but this team, just 3 games remaining. They're going to have a nice little break before the postseason, as they will be one of the first into the clubhouse. Can easily see this team running the table, ending up at 15-3. They have that big game with the Mammoth that will ultimately decide the East. They were my pick to win it all in the beginning. I'm picking them again. I'm going to stick with them. I'm going to call the upset of the Mammoth. Nostradamus sticking his neck out there once again, but I'm going to say the Pipers beat the Mammoth, win the East by virtue of a tiebreaker, and this team will be set up really nicely for the playoffs.
Josh, are you high on Rosemount this year?
It comes and it goes, but yeah, I kind of like that squad.
Oh, I hadn't heard that yet. I hadn't heard that take from you. I don't think anyone else has either. They're the real deal. Like you said, they kind of had that nice little decompression time, and it's a nice little ramp up here. They know how to win, and Ken has got them. I'm sure he's got them all prepped, and they'll be fine. I'm looking forward to seeing them personally, because we haven't seen them since the opener, and I would love for us to have, it's been kind of a whatever season for us. So it'd be nice to make a little noise and cause some kind of ruckus before this summer's over. So circle the calendar, July 20th. Bring the tap wagon too. Bring the tap wagon to McGuire in the left field there. That'd be awesome.
Sounds like a good time to me. Might have to show up for that one. I will not be wearing any Pipers gear, but we'll be heading over to that tapway.
You're not going to go into your Piper stash?
And just wear a kilt, something subtle. In at number 5, and this might be the biggest injustice of the power rankings, but the Waconia Islanders in at number 5. This is a team that has scored 148 runs, the most of any team in the league. Offensively, clearly they are really, really, really good. Pitching, I can tell you that they've got some great arms too. I've played with a couple of the guys that throw for them, and they are as good as you need to win playoff games, big meaningful games. These are Craig Myers, a guy that has won a lot of big games down at Roy Hobbs against some of the best teams literally in the world. So on the 35 plus stage. So these guys are definitely prepped and looking at a championship run. And the fact that I have them in at 5 might be the biggest devaluation on performance, but really the top 4 teams just have a little bit more of a history of doing it. So, and that's why they're sitting where they are.
Yeah, and I can't help but think that also just unfamiliarity on my part, at least. I've never seen them play. Whatever, they're kind of in the same boat as the new market squad to me. You hear things, they're good just by looking at what they do on the web, or on their box scores and whatnot. So I absolutely believe that if we were more familiar with these guys, we'd probably be banging on them too much, and then someone else would be bitching about that. So, we'll see come playoffs. This, at the end of the day, doesn't mean much. If they get in into AAA, we'll see what they are, right? So, and that'll be fun.
In at number 4 is the East Metro Mammoth. They sit at 10-2. They've got 6 games left. A third of their season they're going to smash into the last 2 weeks of the year. So, I mean, it's going to be a fun run. You know, I believe those hitters will definitely benefit from all of the reps and at-bats, you know, heading into the postseason. Grill obviously is great, but not even he can throw 6 games in 2 weeks. So they're going to have to go a little bit deeper into the roster. But I just got to point out some of the years that guys are having on that squad. You know, guys like Mike Lippert, you know, he just homered a couple times, you know, recently in a game. You know, guys like Andy Dahlquist, like, you know, he's way up there in terms of batting average. Nate Stark, you know, has a chance. You know, if it weren't for guys like Marquardt this year threatening to smash the old batting average record, you know, Nate Stark has a chance to even, you know, be up there and be on the all-time, you know, list that we display for people. But these guys are just having an unbelievable year. They've only allowed 25 runs in 12 games, just over 2 runs a game. I can't even do that math without a calculator.
Sure.
The run differential is the highest of anyone in the league. They are winning games by an average of 8.08 runs per game. So, I mean, that's what more do you want from them, right? They don't really have a bad loss on the schedule, but
Milltown?
6 games. Well, I don't know. I think Milltown, they've underperformed. They're a lot like your team, I think, you know, where you guys are both really, really, really good teams that just for whatever reason, attendance, injury, just sheer dumb luck, you know, just couldn't put it together, right? But I don't have the vibes around the Mammoth this year. I just don't have them.
So there's a couple of things that come into play, I think. Well, before the season, you know, us living in the East vacuum, we're like, oh man, our division's tough. Our division's tough. Look at all the other ones, right? Every division's tough in its own way. That being said, I mean, the Mammoth, the Rockets, JTs, Silverbacks, Senators, you know, that can explain a lot of the numbers you just said, or you just brought up. I think, and people will talk about their pitching depth, perhaps. Matt Grill, everyone knows, can throw forever. All these guys that but don't necessarily pop into your head as far as who are the top, you know, arms in the league. But what they do is play defense. And I don't think enough people talk about that. They play a really clean defense. They know how to win. They don't get too worked up when they get down anymore. Maybe at one point when they were starting out, they used to, but now it's just kind of business as usual for them. So you like to look at this and say, there's no way, right? Compared to some of the other teams with the workload that they have coming up. But I wouldn't doubt it. You know, I've seen it happen year in or out. So.
Yeah, guys like Casey Johnson, he leads the league in hits with the most amount of games left to play. You know, I think he's too far back of like an all-time, you know, mark of 41 that was previously set. You know, Tom Corcoran just needs 1 triple to break the all-time record there. He's already tied Mr. Haig's record of 6. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. But Mammoth are really good, but it's just, I don't think it's their year. Call it a gut feeling. In at 3 is the 1 seed, the Minnetonka Saints. Again, devaluing the West. I'm going to get attacked by Arms and Hammer, you know, yet again for doing so. But I think they have, you know, they've got some nice pitching there. I feel like it's too much eggs in one basket with Castello. I know Joe Collier's had a great year on the mound, maybe more so traditionally known for his hitting, but he's got over 20 innings this year. He's got a 3-1 record. But will he be able to, you know, get outs when it comes to, you know, the best bats in the league? You know, it remains to be seen. But obviously, sitting at 14-1, just a couple of games left on their schedule. It's a pretty favorable schedule as well. Snappers showing up on their schedule one more time, but certainly don't expect this team to finish any worse than 16-2. Could easily be the 1 seed when it's all said and done. I think it's between them and Hastings. I do like Hastings to grab that 1 when it's all said and done, but when it comes to the bracket style play, you know, this team was an early exiter last year, and, you know, I feel like they might be again this year.
This year, it just feels like they're on top of things, and their 1 loss was at the Diamonds, 1-0, and that was just seemingly a hiccup. They did have that game where they came back against Waconia, right? I just feel like they just feel different this year. Maybe it's just from a distance here, but I feel like there's something different about them this year.
Well, in at number 2 are the 2-time defending champion Minoka Grays. This team there's not much more to say about them. You just got to see, when it comes down to it, they've got a really big game with Rockford coming down the stretch here, trying to hold off the Tonka Bay Lakers for the North. But I fully expect them to hold on to it. I fully expect them to be the 3 seed in the postseason, probably taking on Lakeville in what will be in a really exciting first-round matchup. We've talked about the Grays at length. Totally think they're capable of ripping off a three-peat. Rooting against them for sure. Want the parity. Give me a new champ.
I understand, but the Grays pitching is ridiculous, and so once they get to the playoffs, I've how I kind of had a feeling about Minnetonka's different this year. I feel like Minoka's kind of different this year. I don't know. I felt like last year they were spent a lot of energy trying to justify themselves being champions, and they just went ahead and repeated. It's quieter this year. I feel like maybe they have a better feeling for who they are, and especially with the new additions they have this year and how they're performing. So a quiet confidence, I believe, is the vibe that they have going on right there, but that remains to be seen, I guess.
No, I think you're spot on. I think it's a good take. But that leaves the number 1 slot, and it belongs to the Hastings Hurricanes. This team has scored 143 runs in 14 games, of course, on the heels of a 13-1 record. They have allowed just 30 runs this season, winning games by an average of over 8 runs a game. That's a run differential of 113 runs. I mean, that's unbelievable. All they have done is just curb stomp people. It seems like they've got Pfeffer back on track. Kaiser, Compline, Franson. They've just got a ton of pitching. The Otto brothers are raking. They have a ton of hitting. They're very well rounded. I think this team gets their revenge on their only loss this season against Lakeville later in the week, and then it's just off and running. Myers is not going to pitch for them this season, so he sounds like he's still pretty active playing with his son in town ball, so that will be a little bit of a smudge for them potentially when it comes to a playoff roster, but I think they've got the horses in the stable to go ahead and wrap up that 1 seed. What they do with it in the playoffs, remains to be seen. But I don't think they'll need any trickery to get past teams this year.
I agree. I got to see them for the first time. They hit the ball, man. And I know we didn't see their top flight pitching. They didn't have to use it. And for some reason, there's certain teams that have a polarizing effect on people in the league one way or the other. And for a lot of people, it's Hastings for whatever the reason. Coming off of last year and how it ended, and like you said, that little kind of controversial take going into the winter, it was kind of a weird spot to kind of talking about Hastings, especially as the new guys. You wonder, does that affect their mentality, their outlook, their performance, whatever? No slip at all. It seems like they've gotten stronger, and perhaps they are better prepared for a run this year in the playoffs versus last year.
Those are our rankings. We are sticking to them, but looking forward to how those are going to be impacted over the week ahead as we wind down towards the season. It is time now to bring on our soulful, funky guests of the week. We've got Jason Peterson DeLaire. This guy is an interesting cat, man, and I cannot wait for this interview. So let's go ahead and bring him on. Well, it is my absolute honor to introduce our guest for today's episode, Jason Peterson DeLaire. To the Fed, he's known as JP, former Minneapolis Diablo, and now of the Chaska Voyagers. But to the world, he is a renowned musician, vocalist, saxophonist, keyboardist, who has literally toured the globe with artists such as Michael Bolton, Prince, Donny Osmond, the Steve Miller Band, Kenny Loggins, and others. Lots more questions about your musical career coming up. But first, I got to ask JP, what's your baseball story?
Oh, man. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, fellas. This is fun. I owe you $20 for that nice intro, Josh. So next time I see you out there, man, I'll hook you up. My baseball story, I came up in New York, and my entire family on the East Coast were all Yankees fans. So my dad and grandfather used to bring me out to Yankee Stadium when I was a kid, like 5, 6. And, I watched Reggie, and this is mid to late 70s watching Reggie Jackson, Ron Guidry. So that, my family was really into baseball. So that's part of it. And the other side of it was my grandparents on my mom's side of the family were both organists for the Minnesota Twins. So the baseball culture has always kind of been on my radar, and I've always loved the game. I played Little League. I played high school ball, did all the park board. So that's how I got interested in the game, and I still love the game, and I'm an old geezer, and I'm lucky enough to still be healthy enough to hang out in the Fed with you guys.
I love it. Yeah, so glad to have you on. Tell us a little bit about how you found the Federal League. How'd you get hooked up with the Diablos and then later the Voyagers?
I'll tell you a story. So I played baseball all the way through Legion Ball. I played for Minneapolis North. And then I played Legion Ball, after my senior year. And really, I kind of let baseball go by the wayside because I was trying to be a rock star, man. I was touring with Prince when I was 22, seeing the world. So I was trying to sow my oats out on the road, man, and be a rock star. Baseball wasn't necessarily my focus then. And I remember I was walking with my mom. We were walking around Scanlon Field, just taking a walk in Robbinsdale. And I said, I really miss playing baseball. And she said, well, you should find a team. And I'm like, I don't know anybody that plays baseball. And then randomly, literally like a week after that, I got a phone call from a buddy of mine. And he said, hey, man, would you like to come and play on the softball team? This guy named Scooter Nelson, it was down at Bryn Mawr Park. So I said, yeah, let's do that. So I joined this team, and there was a guy named Rich Sheldon on that team. And after one of the games, he said, you know what, man, you're a pretty good ball player. I got this group of guys that I think you'd enjoy. So what that was, it was called the Monday Night Softball or whatever to this day. It's still happening. It was at Matthews Park. It's at Brackett Park, South Minneapolis now. So he invited me down, and I met such legends as Rhino Simonson, Ricky Griffith, among very whole cast of eclectic characters. To this day, we get together, there might or might not be some beers involved, and it's just a lot of fun. So that has really turned into my kind of social hang through life. But, through that connect with Rhino and Ricky, they started inviting me to play on baseball teams, softball teams, over the last 25 years. So I spent a long time in the Liga Latina, which is kind of interesting. There was like one or two guys that were mostly white guys, and then most of the rest of the league was like Dominican, Latino, Spanish, Mexican, whatever. But it was the coolest thing because they would set up, we'd play up at Lions Park, and they would set up, the families would come and throw a fiesta on Sundays for the baseball game. So it was just a really fun thing to be a part of. And, then that kind of rekindled, this was probably 15-ish years ago where I started playing with they were the Diablos then in Liga Latina. And then that kind of rekindled, I was playing a bunch of softball, but then I got, the baseball bug because it's a little more satisfying when you crack a nice base hit off somebody that's throwing a little harder. And so anyway, that was my introduction here to the local scene. And then probably the COVID year, Rhino invited me to be a part of the Chaska Diamonds. So I came down, Jamie Houselog and those guys. And so I played a season, and we were good citizens. We were socially distant playing baseball. But that was like one of the greatest summers of my life because I had just made it up to the 50 and up league, and I was still playing with Rhino's kids 18 and up team, and then I was playing Fed ball. So and what was great, I spent 20 years touring with Michael Bolton, and when COVID hit, our entire industry basically got shut down. So I was getting a check every week, getting unemployment to sit and play baseball. I must have played 60, 70 games that season. So it was a beautiful summer of baseball, and that was my introduction to playing Federal League, it's awesome, and I'm happy I'm still able to do it now. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
You've mentioned some of your ties to Minneapolis. The roots are deep for you, being a North student, but it's evolved, just from a baseball standpoint. You've had some pretty epic ties to the community through the music world as well. You mentioned touring with Prince. I know you've played at First Ave. Tell us a little bit just about the connection to that city and what it means to have your roots there, both from a baseball and perhaps a musical perspective.
Absolutely. Well, Prince, he was obviously like the godfather of music to a large degree. He was our superstar. So I was going to North High School. I graduated in 1987, and in about 84, I think, this movie came out. It was called Purple Rain. I remember going downtown to the Skyway Theater with a couple of my buddies from North, and we went and watched that movie. And, scenes like purifying yourself in the waters of Lake Minnetonka, I'm like, hey, this is something I might get into at Apollonia. My uncle was the keyboard player with Morris Day and the Time in that movie. So I was kind of connected on the periphery of the Prince universe early on, at like 14, 15. The Revolution would come over to my grandmother's house, and they'd have barbecues, and I'd be sitting there next to Bobby Z or Dr. Fink and be like, I want to do that. I remember Prince being a very, very much an inspiration for me to want to do music. So, I still live in North Minneapolis. He cut his teeth in North Minneapolis. It's just, so how I got into that, I was about 91. I got hired to be in the Paisley Park House Band because Prince wanted another band besides his band to kind of put various other artists that, he was really creative. So he would always work on other artists like whoever, The Time, Morris Day and the Time, or whoever he was producing. He produced an album on my uncle called The Family. My Uncle Paul was the lead singer in The Family. And one day, so I got that job in 91, and one day Prince walked into rehearsal with this gorgeous young lady, and he looked at us, he said, y'all are going to be her band now. And we're like, word, man, who is that? It was Carmen Electra.
No way.
But when Carmen Electra was 19, man, I mean, she still looks good, but when she was 19 and Prince would have her like in silk pajamas walking around, we're like, damn, man, a little tough to concentrate, so to speak.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was my introduction to Prince. You mentioned that I just played at First Ave, which was really cool because it was with some of the same people that I had come through Prince's camp, when I was 22, 56 now. So it was quite a reunion, and to be playing Prince's music at First Avenue where they recorded Purple Rain was a mind-blowing kind of full circle reflection on my life, and it was fun, man. But anyway, that's that connect. I still rep North Minneapolis. I came up playing for North High, and one of the things I wanted to tell you guys about that is so cool for me is that whether it was playing ball on concrete when I was a kid in New York or playing some of these beautiful fields that I get to come and play with you guys on, in the Fed, I was playing on literally dirt fields. The entire field at North Commons Park where I played high school ball was all dirt. No infield. It was just dirt. That is a fact. So I'm honored, man. I'm privileged to hang with you guys and continue the ride. And like I tell my girlfriend that I'm going to probably play till I can't move anymore, which is cool because Minnesota baseball has those opportunities. And also you can go down and play the Roy Hobbs, which I did for the first time this last year.
So you mentioned you're going to play as long as you can. And I think that's kind of the sentiment amongst us too, and everyone we have on this podcast. It's like, now that we know how awesome it is and how easily it is to lose the ability to swing and throw, you just don't ever want to let go of it again. However, as a person who is multifaceted and you are hooked into this baseball community with guys whose skills, let's be honest, are deteriorating and perhaps are looking for a new challenge, do you ever have guys just coming up to you and, dude, gotta teach me how to, do you have that every now and then, or is that something you welcome?
Yeah, kind of, because even this year I'm playing for the Voyagers, and there's a couple of the young guys, 37, pulling up with hamstrings and out for 7 games. I'm like, geez, man. I said, brothers, y'all got to listen to me, man. It's important. If you want longevity in this game, you got to go about 40%. And I'm only half kidding. I'm only half kidding because we do have to adapt as we, as you can't move like you used to, you can't see the ball like you used to. You got to evolve and do what you can. So that's a great question, and I think if we have some humility, or maybe we can't hit the ball like we did, 20 years ago, whatever age you're at now. If you have humility and a love for the game, I think you can still get some enjoyment out of the hang, because it's a beautiful fraternity of people that love the game and sit in the parking lot and play in beautiful ballparks. Man, there's so much I personally enjoy about it. I don't really drink anymore. I quit a long time ago, but the baseball hang is like my social diversion in life more than anything else. I'm not going out to bars. I play in bars or, sometimes when I do shows, but no, I'd much rather be playing a baseball game, to be honest with you, man.
I was going to say, I think you are the type of guy who is the worst enemy of the wife of a guy who's going through a midlife crisis, if that makes sense, because you've hung out, you've toured, you've got stories for days, I'm sure. You could just say Bolton and Prince. You got everyone, you got people rubbernecking saying, what, who now? So you got everybody right there. And you play baseball, you like to hang, you got all these other things you can do. And I think just people hang around you for a couple games might get the wrong idea and start getting ambitious, want to pick up an instrument or want to say, hey, because, right. So I'd imagine you'd be a fun guy to chop it up with in the parking lot. So looking forward to that next time. But I was just going to say, for this age group, you're the perfect dude to hang out with, for sure.
Well, don't blame me, man, if y'all get in trouble, though, man.
No.
You start getting the bug, man, get the guitar and the keyboard out, man.
Yeah.
Don't blame me, No, that's funny, man. I'll tell you a funny story. Dan Chess, I hope I got his last name. He's a great pitcher on the Voyagers. And I remember early on this season, because I played for Chaska during the COVID season, and then I played 2 years with Ricky's Diablos team. And then I sat out for a little bit. And it's interesting because I was hitting really good when I was 53. I think I hung it up from the Fed. I batted 390 for the season. I'm like, that's good. I'm good with that. I can walk, because it's just like a boxer, man. You got to know when your time is up. I'm playing 50s ball now. But Rhino and Jamie would ask me to come and play the Hickory tournament up in St. Michael the last couple years. So I still kind of had the bug. So I went up there and did that. But now I'm back on the squad. They're like, why don't we just put you on the roster? You come to the games when you can. So we were playing Waconia the other day. And it's either I got old, my eyes got bad, or they got some better pitchers out there. Because I didn't get an AB in this particular game against Waconia. And I came up to Jamie after the game. I said, hey, bro, I just wanted to thank you for protecting my 185 average, man. He thought I was pretty good, man.
Pitching in this league is pretty humbling these days.
It is. That's okay because, I think the ego, and I'm being real, just in life, I think your ego can get in your way in your development as a decent human being at times. We're all competitive, or else we wouldn't be playing ball as we get older. We love the competition, the challenge to yourself. That's why I wanted to come back. I'm like, yeah, man, let's get in it. But I think the humility, seeing 82 or it's kind of like when I'll tell you guys a quick story. This was my last year with the Diablos before they got kicked out of the league. And God bless Ricky, who passed away. A lot of you guys knew Ricky Griffith, El Vikingo. But Josh, we had a little incident. We were playing Apple Valley when I was playing with the Diablos. And the way I tell the story is, I said, this dude was throwing so hard, man. He was probably throwing like low 90s, mid 90s. And,
right.
Yeah, it sounds right. So I had to cheat a little bit, and he gave me one of them two-seamers that come back into your hands, and I was like, uh-oh. And I tried to pull off it, and it clipped just a little bit of my bone right there. So I was like, it didn't end my career, but I was like, but it's funny because we became friends after that, man. It's just part of the game. But the funny part is the story, because I'm like, yeah, it's probably low 90s, man. This dude was bringing it. And please, man, he might be throwing 65, 70, man. Oh, we laugh about that.
I remember that day. Yeah, it was two-seamer that got away a little bit. I was throwing a little bit harder than most days, so
You
maybe I'll
know,
give you 80. 90 is probably a little out of my reach, but
generous, 80 something.
maybe 80.
Yeah.
80.5.
Well, let me just say this. I went to martial arts. Yeah, I've been a student at the Minnesota College Group for the last 30 plus years, which is a really cool place. And I showed up with a little soft cast. I didn't need to get like a real cast. It was just one of those soft casts just to give it time. It healed up in like 6 weeks. It only took a little tiny nick out of there, man. It wasn't too bad. But my martial arts teacher said, "Man, what the hell happened?" I said, "Yeah, I got hit with a pitch playing ball." He said, "Man, I was watching some YouTube videos, man, and I think the idea is to hit it with the baseball bat when I'm like, thanks, coach. Appreciate you, man." So
Yes.
it's all good stuff, man. I'm
great.
just thankful we're all still hanging. I still got a chance to play some ball, man, at the end of the day. And that's that. So I had to bring that story up that you guys had me on. That's a good one, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you you sharing it, and I will definitely back your version of it. Me being in the '90s for sure going forward.
Yeah, it sounds better. I think it sounds better. It's all good.
How else are you going to break a bone like that? You had to be throwing real hard.
I don't think 60 is going to get it done, you know?
No.
Nope.
Well, JP, I gotta say, I love your humility. Talking about just being able to check our egos. For a guy that has literally been there, done that across the music industry. You're in the Minnesota Music Hall of Fame. You mentioned all of the world headliners that you've had a chance to tour with. I know you've been all over the globe. Your music has taken you to so many interesting places, and I'm sure you have just an incredible amount of stories that you could share with us. But I know you also got a new single out as well. It's "The Game of Love." We opened up with it on this episode of the podcast, and we'll close with the full version of it as well, so that people can hear that. That is rising on the UK Soul Chart. It's currently at number 7. Tell us a little bit about the inspiration for that and where you hope it can go.
Well, thank you, man. I'm running up a heck of a tab with you. That might be $40 now, man. It's an intro, the plug of the song, man. We should do one of these again sometime, man.
Love it.
No, I appreciate it, brother. The Game of Love, I've been a songwriter. I got multiple albums out. So this is a really interesting one. The story, I kind of had this song, at least the idea of the song, The Game of Love, in the can for a little while. And it's basically it could be about a baseball player, but in this particular story, it's about a young football player that has a girlfriend at home, whatever, he's in a small town. He goes out to college to be a football star. And the whole theme of the song is that, he had a lot of temptation. He's the big man on campus type stuff. So he could have connected with any one of these young ladies on campus that he wanted to, but he stayed true to his love, and they worked it out and they stayed together. It's actually a pretty cool story. And the hook is like, it's all in the game of love. You get back what you play for is kind of the hook of the song. So yeah, it's got a good message. It's some of that good Disney, have that good feel, Hallmark afternoon special. No, but it's so fun. It's an R&B song, and they're giving me it's getting some love here on the smooth jazz charts here in the States, but it's really gotten more attention in UK. It's like you said, it's number 7 on the UK soul charts. As far as what I hope happens with it is, I'm pretty happy already, just to get it recognized and get some people around the world listening to my music, because I worked with Michael Bolton for 20 years, and then he came down with brain cancer about a year and a half ago. I got to either find another big gig or continue working on my own art and see where that leads. I'm just happy it's getting a little bit of notoriety. I mean, it feels good. I guess that's the story about the song, and thank you for mentioning that, man.
Absolutely. In my mind, it'll always be I'll swap out the football for the baseball. I think there's a lot of
absolutely do that.
lessons that can apply to both. Love the title. It's some good making music too, man. I absolutely love it. Make sure you give it a listen and support one of our own. I also love what you've done in terms of combining sports and music. I know you've also played the national anthem prior to a championship game out in Belle Plaine. You mentioned the tie with your grandparents being the staff musicians at CCO, and then going on to be organist for the Minnesota Twins.
Right.
What other ties can you draw between your love of the game and your love of music and your ability to kind of create and be yourself in both?
That's a really cool question. I'll jump to a story. Many years ago, I was down in Florida doing a gig. It was probably a Bolton gig. And some of the Montreal Expos came to our gig. And they wanted to hang because it's like acting or sports or music. It's like when you see somebody doing some stuff that you think is cool, like the Expos thought we were rock stars, right? So they invited us down to spring training, gave us comps to go hang with those guys. And we think the pro baseball players are the bomb. So there's a cool camaraderie throughout, like sports, acting, music that kind of crosses barriers. So I'm happy I have my music career, and I'm happy I can still play baseball because, you don't have to be limited to one thing that you dig, man, in your life. I mean, if you like playing the drums, play the drums. I mean, you don't have to limit yourself is what my point is. So I hope to keep having a good enough health and fortune to keep doing all this stuff, the martial arts stuff, the baseball, playing gigs. So it's just a different expression in a way. Like you mentioned that. It's a little different expression. Like hitting a baseball is one feel, and then hitting somebody in the mouth is a slightly different feel. It's all good, man. I'm kidding. I wouldn't. But, just sparring. Just for sport, of course.
For sport.
I was going to say, just talking about the crossover between arts, baseball, what have you. I know I've noticed since I was a kid, music has gone from a charming ambient thing to a beat you over the skull thing at the stadium now. Walk-up songs are huge. They're fun. I know some of the traditionalists aren't huge fans, but I feel like we're about the age where it really started to become a thing, where I'm about 40. I'm 40. I'm not about 45. I'm 45. But all that being said, I do a lot of like highlight videos, stuff like that. I like to chop that kind of thing up. And the genesis of most of my ideas starts with a song. I won't have a vision. I'll have an idea of what kind of the angle is, but until I hear the right song or it won't come together. What's the process like for you as far as, is there a lot of structure to what you do, or are you just kind of loosey-goose and then you think of something, boom, let's sit down and knock this shit out? Like, is it a spur of the moment thing, or are you a planner like Josh?
That's a really interesting question. I think just like being good at baseball or being good at music, I think it's your fundamentals kind of come through, right? You can tell a cat who's played a lot of baseball or played a lot of saxophone, right? I mean, I think for me, it goes in waves as far as, I'll get back to the music side, like the creative process of writing songs. For one, I always find I'm better when I turn my equipment on and spend some time with your gift. If you find the time to work on your craft, whether it's being a ball player, an actor, or baseball, you set yourself up in a better position to have better luck because you're actively working on your gift, right? You can't just show up at a jam session and you haven't played your saxophone for 2 months, right? So, but it goes in waves too, because some days I'm real focused on it. I'm like, I have a project or something that I'm wanting to get done. So you find the time, but there's other times where I don't want to do that. I want to enjoy summertime in Minnesota because we get it for 2 months, right? So, my point with that is when it's flowing good, though, it's like you want to capture that. It's just like if you're on a hot streak playing ball, man, you want to play the next game. You're like, I just went 8 for 9. I want to get out there, right? So it's all relative, but I think at the end of the day, it's like you have to spend time honing your craft, whatever it is that you do, or you
spend time. It's becoming more apparent that to be able to hang. If you want to be competitive in this league, you're going to have to spend time dedicating yourself to your craft in the winter, when you see a lot of guys doing that now, and that's pretty awesome that we actually have the resources here to do that. So you'll have to excuse me for fanboying a little bit. I'm a huge Minneapolis sound guy. I'm just a huge music scene guy here, so when I heard you were on, I got all kinds of jazz.
No, I appreciate it. And I feel very, very fortunate to have had the opportunity to work with Prince. I mean, I've had conversations with Prince. I mean, and he is an absolute giant of the whole Minneapolis. We wouldn't have had the Minneapolis sound without Prince. So the fact, I mean, and that hasn't hurt my career either, to with validity say, yeah, I toured with Prince. I mean, people are like, no shit, man. I'm like, wow. You know what I mean? It's been a good badge of honor for me to have.
It's like saying you played for the Minoka Grays last year. You must know what the fuck you're doing.
I remember, let me give you a quick Matty Carter story. So I think it was my first year up with the over 50 league. And I went from, never seeing that particular kind of pitching, playing Federal League, which is good pitching. You got a lot of good pitching out there. And we're getting into the 50s, and all of a sudden you're seeing 27-mile-an-hour curveball, maybe 27, 37. And it's a lot of junk is my point. And Matty was umping a game. He said, bro, stay back, man. You're way out in front of this junk, man. Just stay back and rip it. I looked at him, got back in the box. The next pitch, dude hung a curveball like up here. And I didn't even know I had it out, man. I'm running down to first trying to get me my double. I'm like, man, that felt good. It's like, ease up, kid. It's out of here. I'm like, what? Yeah. I didn't even get to see it go out, but that's a good Matty Carter story, man. Awesome. I got to give him an assist on the dinger on that one.
I love it. I love that.
He's great.
Matt is a good one. Cliff Christopherson of the Pipers had a story very similar to that recently. He shared a video on Twitter where he hit a good one of the gap and came up into second base, and it was about 5 seconds later where they told him to keep on running because it had gone over. I kind of felt
gypped a little bit, though. I was like, but I mean, I did the right thing. I'm digging for second. I kind of wanted to see it. I didn't even see it go out. And, they don't really video the over 50 games.
Yeah.
Not a lot of game changer going on, man, with the video.
You got some technology versions in that league for sure. Well, JP, tell us a little bit about where people can hear you around the music scene, at least in Minnesota here, if they wanted to come out and catch a gig sometime.
I'm doing now that I'm like not on the road, it's been really good. I've been finding all kinds of like interesting things to do. I played with Mick Sterling and the Stud Brothers, who's an iconic Minneapolis like bunkers band from years ago. I'm doing some like solo piano gigs. I'm playing out at Birches on the Lake, which is a really cool place from time to time. My buddy George Scott McKelvey, Rhino, and some of the guys come out to hear those. Some of the Dodgers guys come out there. I will. You can share like my Facebook stuff if anybody wants to like hear any of the music, or I usually post my local stuff on Facebook. So if anybody wants to come and check a gig out, I'm fortunate enough to play at some really nice places. So what's funny, too, is now that, like, the big-time gig is done for today, and another one may come around. I don't know. But the way my life has worked for me is I've never really known. Like, I never planned that I was going to be working for Prince or Donny Osmond or Richard Marx or Michael Bolton. I never had that even close to my consciousness. I wasn't like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to go be a rock star and go to 150 countries. It wasn't like that. And that's to my point of like, if you can stay in good preparation and use the gifts that God has given you, then he can send you on and do whatever that he's got for you. So I don't really have a plan other than do what I do and take what the day brings in a sense. It sounds kind of esoteric, but that is really how my life and my career has really worked for me. So I'm not going to start doubting it now because that's the way it's gone, and, have that story to lean back on when I start, it's probably like this with baseball too. You start get an anxiety brain, and then you start slumping. It's like, you gotta have confidence, you gotta have faith, and trust your prep in whatever you do, and it usually seems to work out.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I think there's a lot of great lessons, just in being prepared, spending time with your craft, and then just being open to the opportunities. And like you said, put yourself in a position to be lucky, right? Or, you're not going to
That's
get
really true. That's a
some of
good
these.
one.
Yeah.
And be able to be taught too. If you think, here's something that I've figured out, and we were talking about like your ego getting humbled at times, whether it's through baseball or life, or life is not always perfect. I think when you have a spirit of being teachable, that people show up to help you. If you act like you know everything in the world, then they're like, okay, he's got it figured out. We got nothing for him. And I think it probably in whatever industry you're in or walk of life you're in, I think that's a good thing to take. So that's something I try to keep in my brain, whether it's, Rhino told me some stuff at the cage the other day, listen to guys that are better than you that might be able to teach you something. You don't always have it all together. So I think, that's a good, a good mantra or a good lesson to be teachable, not stupid, but be open to if somebody can give you something, man, along the way. Guys, man, I love what you're doing. I'm very happy to still be able to be a part of the Fed, and man, it's a great brotherhood of people. It's good baseball, beautiful parks. It's fun for the whole family, ladies and gentlemen, right here at the Fed.
Well, JP, thank you so much for coming on. And I know we just barely scratched the surface of some of the stories that I'm sure that you have accumulated in your time on Earth here and in your career. But thank you for coming on and sharing some of those. We are so grateful to have you on the podcast. And as a part of this league, we are definitely a better place to play because of you. So thank you for sharing your time and your talents with us. If you haven't heard it, you need to go out and hear A Game of Love, rep one of our own here and help push that thing to #1 in the UK soul chart and get it on the charts here in the United States. Go catch JP at a gig somewhere. JP, again, thanks for being a part of the show. Super glad to have you. It was a treat.
Man, I appreciate you both. Thanks so much, you guys.
You bet.
Well, I told you that guy has some interesting stories. I mean, he's a man who's obviously been literally around the world doing what he loves, and great to hear some of his baseball stories as well. JP DeLaire, what a treat to have in the league.
Absolutely. It's part of what makes the league so great. Any parking lot, you're going to hear a story you haven't heard before.
And it's always nice to add a little culture to our group here. You and I,
Yeah, for sure.
we need a little smoothing around the edges. So
We all know that there's one guy in this league who is capable of coming to play a nice saucy saxophone next to you while you're eating your romantic dinner at Chick-fil-A if you want, for the right price, I bet. There's one guy in this league that could probably pull that off, and we just talked to him.
I love it. Yeah. Reach out to him for bookings and make sure you go out and you listen and hear his single, The Game of Love. Well, that is all the time we have for this edition of Fed Up. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this great league. We'll see you next week, but until then, stay fed.
At 17, they fell in love, high school sweethearts. Pretty girl had big plans for their future. Baby boy was going away to play football. A few years later, they get married and have kids. The temptation of being what you playing for? Years later, they're still in love, high school sweethearts. still holding on to that special thing. Baby boy, he knows he did the right thing. Looking back on his life, he wouldn't change a thing. The temptation of being a big man, okay? He's had a lot of pretty girls to choose from, but he never went astray, not even once, 'cause he knew his pretty girl was the one. It's all in the game of love. All in the game of love. What you playing for?